The financial crunch. Can you feel it? That's the title I made of this video. And as most of you know, a lot of times I'll speak out and discuss certain current events that have a political or economic nature, because they kind of go hand in hand. But we all know, and I'm not trying to cause fear, panic, or complain, but I made this video basically to give people a chance to vent and say things. I don't know how well you can do it on YouTube, because I know on Rumble you can say whatever you want. Here, if your comments are a little strong, they may remove them. I'm not quite sure. But as we all know, this year is totally screwed up. Politically, economy looks like it's going to just explode. Inflation, everything else. They're saying now they're talking about huge layoffs coming in the next few months. And the fact that with inflation and all this stuff going on, nobody's going to be able to pay their bills. So you're going to have massive defaults in terms of the value of your property and everything else. And if you go to try to find information or see who's saying what, no matter where you go, the information is so extreme from one side to the other, you have no idea what's the truth and what's a lie. Okay? But the thing that kind of got me is, well, inflation. My wife told me, hey, we haven't done anything or changed anything or bought anything out of the ordinary, but she goes, monthly the cost of just paying the light bill, eating and driving to work has doubled in the past year and a half. And she goes, we haven't bought anything different or changed the amount of what we're getting. We're not taking long trips in the vehicles or nothing. So and she said, it's doubled. Okay. So you got that. That's inflation. You know that, and you got to conserve. You don't go out to eat as much. I just don't stop down at the Veterans Post or the bar and drop $15, $20 when I go out in the afternoon, sit there with the rest of the old guys and have a beer. You got to cut back on that. And just be careful what you do. So you manage that. Now you go with the state of the stock market. And like I said, all these things going on. So what's going to happen? Being retired, I'm not in a position to where I can take a 40% or more hit on my investments in the stock market. I just don't have enough time in life left to gain it back. So I have to look at whatever I have, which has gone up over the years, is what I have. Okay, and I don't trust any of these financial advisors or any of these other people. I really don't trust them. You got to look at protecting your money. It may be a bad idea. It may be a good idea. The thing is, you don't know for certain, because nobody knows for certain what the hell is going to happen. So the stock market's another one. That's where you got to watch. And then there are people that have no money in the stock market, so it don't matter. Another thing, and see, there's a lot of things that even though you manage your life and you figure you got things under control, you're in a good position, like I am, things can happen. If people start failing on their mortgages again in a mortgage crisis, you could see a drop in your property value. Okay? The thing is, about the only thing I really have is my home, and the fact that we have never borrowed against it after paying on it for all these years. So I have a bulk of my net assets is the house. And recently, they reappraised the value of my house in the county, so that kind of changed my tax rate, which I had to fork over some money into the escrow fund so my mortgage payment doesn't unexpectedly go up a few $100s or something. Okay, so I had to deal with that. That was kind of a surprise. But I shouldn't complain because for many years, the area I live in, the taxes were quite reasonable, and it was never an issue. Where other counties, it's a different story. So can't complain, but something that threw me off. Then I was watching, and home insurance. There's a big debate over this. My state, fortunately, just told them they're going to have a small increase. They're not going to allow them. They wanted to go like 30 or 40%. And if you lived out on the coast, because the state I live in, the coast, that's where a lot of the hurricanes hit. And those houses down on the beaches and on the coast are expensive. That property is super expensive. It's desirable, and all these guys, they got all this money, own some kind of property out there. They wanted to increase their insurance by 90%, just about double it. And I don't even want to know what it is out there. I don't live in an area where hurricanes or high winds. Fortunately, where I live, in the center of the state, I'm not up in the mountains where they've had forest fires and stuff. And, the insurance companies are saying, hey, we either raise the rates or we pull out. And until my friend was telling me, I know this guy's my age, he kind of inherited this house, and it's not really a nice house. I ain't going to go into the details, but he lives there, and he's got it insured. The house is paid for, okay? And it's kind of a little tiny ramshackle place, but the insurance company keeps harassing him, and it looks like they want to cancel his insurance policy. And I guess it's just the house is run down, and it must be insured for more than it's worth, or more than what it would cost to replace it, or some kind of thing there. So that was something he was discussing with me, and I figured, maybe it's because of the condition of the home. All right. And he said they were going to do this, and out on the coast they were going to raise the insurance. So he mentioned that, and I was scrolling down YouTube, and I seen this couple videos about having your homeowner's insurance policy canceled. Now that happens like when I was in New York. I moved out of the state, had my residence here, but I couldn't sell the house. And it was vacant. It was close enough to where somebody was there. My parents would go and check on it, take care of it, make sure everything was all right. But they found out I wasn't living there, and they canceled my insurance. Okay? And I still owed money on the house, still paying it. And what happens is if they cancel your insurance or do not insure you anymore, okay, this is something different. The bank's going to foreclose on the mortgage because you still owe money on your mortgage. The house has to be insured. If you cannot insure it, you're screwed. So that was an odd thing back in New York, and that's why, like I said, about the worst thing you could do with your money is own property anywhere in New York State. So what I've seen is happening to people, and this is out in California, and I think in Florida and down wherever the hurricanes come, high wind, or where they've had these forest fires. Okay, that's an ongoing problem. And these people, they own a house, and this woman's telling a story, we bought this house, it's worth X amount of money, we still owe X amount of money on it, me and my husband are both retired, and she goes, everything's fine, and but we live in an area where there's forest fires. So the insurance companies just say, okay, after your policy runs out this year, we're no longer insuring anybody. Okay? It's like the company's just leaving the state. And so the woman goes, okay, so the company don't want to insure my house. All right, so and she said it's like $2,000 a year to insure the house. And so she goes, they're going to cancel it. So she goes, I go look for insurance because they still have a mortgage. If the insurance is canceled, I think the bank can foreclose on the mortgage. If I'm correct, I didn't get into the details of that. So the woman says, I'm looking, and I call around to see if I can get homeowners insurance. And one company said, yeah, we'll insure you and cover you, to help you not get foreclosed, for $12,000 a year. Okay, so it's $10,000 more than what they're paying. And then I guess the wonderful state of California, because they had some other people that were experts explaining this, people in the insurance industry saying what's happening, weather changes, okay? And they go, some of the larger companies just aren't insuring anything in the state of California. And because the loss is too high. So the one guy goes, they set up some kind of state-funded system to help you get insurance. And the woman was given from a company, not going into the state-assisted insurance, at $12,000. And he said, they say it helps you, but it doesn't, because he goes, they'll charge you $13,000 to $14,000 a year. And they're using taxpayers' money and stuff and everything. That's, just that story alone. You're sitting there, and if you live in the wrong area, okay, you're in trouble. Now the woman said, I'm stuck. The only thing I could do, I'd force to sell the house. And if they won't insure the house, okay, then I have to take somebody who's going to offer me cash for the property. And of course, if you're over a barrel, okay, who are you going to find that's going to drop off? There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars pay you cash for property. Okay, so that's where, again, first of all, I wouldn't live in California. Okay, that protects me right there, or any of these states. And yeah, if you live on the coast, or you live in an area where hurricanes, or in the middle of the country, in the plains, where there's tornadoes all the time, areas like that, they must be, coming up with the same thing. So there's a lot of places where people are getting hit. Now, if there's any truth to what they're saying about at the end of March, April, everyone's mumbling that this is when it's the end of the quarter, I guess. And this is when there's supposed to be high, massive layoffs. This is also when a lot of the bailout things for the bank are going to end. So they said banks are going to fail. People are going to get laid off. And with the interest rates where they are now, a lot of businesses will not be able to refinance or go on. So they're talking about a pretty serious thing. And, that alone, you should have your attention, and you should be trying to protect yourself if something like this happens. But then you get hit with a reassess my house, which in a way I don't blame them. It's kind of good in one way, but it's bad in another, okay? Or if they did pass it and they increased my homeowner's insurance by 40%, okay? That would be another bill on top of the inflation where money's kind of in short supply. They got you coming and going in all different ways, okay? And if you ain't careful, or if you don't manage your money tightly, you could get in a lot of trouble, okay? It's problems. And of course, you know how people deal with things. You're going to see, crime is already out of control. You're going to see a rise in crime, theft, all this stuff. Okay, you just drive down the street, people are impatient. Nevertheless, if you cut off their food supply, drug supply, whatever, tell them they can't have something, they just go berserk. So now we're going to have a backlash if there's social unrest. If there's social unrest for all us guys in the gun thing, we know that's what's going to happen I don't know, they've sold a lot of guns, and you've seen the sales on guns. I don't think it's that great, okay? But I don't know if there is civil unrest, if we're going to go spiraling right back into another panic thing where the gun stores are empty and you can't find ammunition, all right? You kind of can't find ammunition or especially reloading components at all, okay? But all the popular go-to calibers, 9mm, 5.56, 7.62 by 39. It's not cheap anymore, but it's around. And a lot of the handgun calibers and stuff that you find, it's spotty, are quite expensive. Okay, 380 is actually more. That's why a guy said he wouldn't buy a 380 pistol, because I'd rather buy a compact 9, because 9mm ammo is less expensive than 380 ammo. And 38 Special, I don't even know what it costs now. I bought a few boxes just for around the house. It's up there. But I was surprised when it comes to reloading components, just trying to find brass. Well, we all know powder. Powder, you're screwed. Primers are, the price is ridiculous. But they are available and they bounce back and forth. I mean, at one time you couldn't find small pistol primers. Now they're out there, it costs more, but you can get some. You can get a brick of them. So I said, let me load some rifle calibers. And I'm looking. Large, just regular large rifle primers. Nowhere. Nobody has them. Ammo Seek, whatever. Nobody's got them listed. And for a few months, you couldn't find them, which, is crazy. And again, the prices, they're in short supply. They're like 14 cents a piece. At least the foreign small pistol primers drop down about 6 cents a piece. But then again, when you order them, you're paying hazmat and shipping and handling, and that's adding another $40 or something to whatever you buy. So I don't know, but yeah, economic crisis here is, and you can't tell. Okay, you really can't tell, because if you look at the people that do this for a living and forecast and analyze all this, what they're telling you is pretty frightening. Okay. Are the people in charge going to pull a fast one or do something to avert this, or just focus and economically crush one sector of society or one group of people? I don't know. And it was interesting. One of these guys that's, analyzes all this, and he looked back historically, and he said that, we are in a recession. He goes, what a depression is. He goes, and you can have growth in a depression. And he discussed the 1929 stock market crash, which started off the depression. And he said, everyone thinks that the whole stock market dropped in one day. He goes, it wasn't. It was 2 days. He goes, they lost something like 12% one day, and then they lost like 9 the next day, or one way or the other. But he goes, it happened over 2 days in 1929. And he goes, yes, that's 24% and all this other stuff. But he said, what really happened was it took 3 years, okay? The next 3 years afterwards, he goes, the stock market lost 70% of its value over a period of them 3 years, gradually, little by little by little, and hit that low point, okay, in the mid-30s. And he said that it wasn't until, and he goes, there was growth in them years and things, people, did make a profit on something, and business went on and things like that. But he said the stock market really did not recover or get to the level prior to that 1929, the level of value, until 1956 or something like that. So he goes, that depression, the Great Depression, he goes, people don't quite understand it. And I think he was kind of insinuating, you're not going to see like a bubble burst and this huge collapse. Maybe you will. But he goes, it could happen where, you lose 5% one day, the next week you lose 10%, and this and that. And if it keeps going in a gradual steps, the stock market could go down an awful lot in, a period of a couple of years. That may be what he was kind of insinuating is going to happen here. It ain't going to be like all of a sudden one day it's all done in one day. It's going to be a downward trend. And then when people panic and start pulling out of it. And another thing that got me worried is they said with this, if they have a massive layoff, all these people putting their money into the stock market through their 401k and matches and that, well, you don't have a job, that stops. And if enough people get laid off, it could have an adverse effect. So that's something else to think about. Well, like I said, a lot of things out there, yeah, it don't look good. But the best thing to do is keep your wits about you, not to panic, and try to just make some sort of sense or use your best judgment as best you can to weather out whatever's going to happen here. All right. Remember, comment section, I made this one. You guys can comment down below. Hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned.